The movie begins in the 19th century, during the Qing dynasty. China was under corrupt control, which sparked the Taiping Rebellion. That lasted 14 years. The recorded death toll was 70 million, which is significantly similar to World War II casualties. A dismal afternoon after a brutal conflict between loyalists and rebels. Many loyalist soldiers are murdered, except for General Peng Qingyun, who emerges from a pile of dead bodies and picks himself up from the destruction. He travels in the opposite direction of the evacuation queue after watching a woman do the same. He pursues her to a nearby settlement, but passes out midway. The woman is compassionate and takes him to a deserted house to treat him. General Qingyun wakes up from his bed, distressed and guilty about the death of all his men. At the same time, the rival Chu army remained on the sidelines, watching the horror unfold. They sleep beside each other at night, but the general finds her missing the next day. Continuing on foot through the war-torn village, he sits among the refugees, waiting for the daily supplies to arrive. Warlord Zhenghua Yang notices his military uniform and tests his story in metal. After demonstrating his combat abilities, the general is transported to see his brother Zhao Uru, who is leading a raid on a rebel convoy. General Qingyun observes from above as the two brothers and their armies slaughter their way through the siege, even going so far as to assist Wei Yong, who nearly gets slashed in the face with a rapid sprint. He uses a rebel fighter as a shield to evade the opposing commander's gunshots and stabs him with a spear. The bandits applaud his daring conduct and invite him to join their crusade. As they return home, the bandits are hailed with joyous praise by the locals, including Lion Sheng, the woman who saved General Qingyun. However, to his amazement, he realizes she is Uru's wife. After making love to her husband, she spends time preparing lunch and reflecting on her brief experience with General Qingyun, telling him a story about how Uru protected him from becoming a young Xiao pony, a courtesan sold to rich men. Later, after dinner, Qingyun informs Uru of the betrayal of the Queen's army, which resulted in his men dying in battle. He consoles him, knowing that brotherly love is important for winning a battle. Later, after Lion Cheng brings Wei Yong some food, she attempts to avoid Qinyan. Nonetheless, the persistent general finds her and asks why she did not flee Uru when she had the opportunity. Suddenly, the Queen's army attacks the village, and the soldiers raid the town for stolen supplies. The villagers' opposition is met with tyranny, leading to a tense standoff with Uru, who eventually surrenders to the commander. He gives him a flogging and warns him not to make the same mistake again. The next morning, as the village tries to reconstruct what was lost, General Qingyun offers that Uru and his men join Lord Chen's army to compete with the Qi. He accepts the proposition on the condition that the general swear a blood pledge to show his loyalty to the Brotherhood. After viciously slaying 3 foreigners, Uru and Wei Yong join their bloodied blades in the fire and swear allegiance to one another. The next day, their men leave the area and begin the journey to the Qing Empire. Not long later, the 3 men are brought to the High Court, where Qinyan explains their actions to Lord Chan and requests a 10-day mission to capture Shu City. Though initially dismissive of the idea due to recruiting only 800 men, the lords agreed to provide an additional 1,500 men in the new Shan army as long as they do not receive wages. Qingyun approves this, assuming they will plunder the city's riches for profit. Sometime later, the Shan army prepares for the impending fight at their base. Uru is concerned about their success, but Qinyan believes they can win by breaking past the opposing line and engaging their warriors in hand-to-hand battles. This plan of action requires 200 men willing to offer their bodies as shields, allowing the archers behind them to get within range of the enemies. Though many will be sacrificed, Wei Yong rallies in support of the plan, with Uru promising to double their earnings if they die and treble them if they survive the onslaught. The fight takes place on the next day. The Shan army maintains its position across the battlefield. The Shu army, led by Commander Huang Wenjin, awaits in the distance. a competing envoy arrives to demand their surrender, only to be decapitated by Uru, sparking the first attack wave commanded by Wei Yong. As feared, the opposing front line starts to fire, killing a few men while many others are rushing onward equipped with metal shields. Despite Uru's eagerness to help the soldiers, Qin Yun dismisses him and lets the plot play out accordingly. The archers fire the arrows from behind the human shields, taking the Shu army off guard. Due to the massive losses, Wenjin orders the entire backline to charge forward and fight with the horsemen led by Uru, who have deliberately blinded their horses so they can charge in a straight line. General Qin Yun pursues his horsemen as the Shu army fires cannons into the region. He rapidly leaps from his horse and assaults the enemy bombardiers with a spear, then hacks and slashes at the enemy foot soldiers. Though one of the men tries to light the cannon, the quick-thinking general slides it away, destroying the entire barricade. He grows tired as another cannon fires at him, only to be blocked by a brave man from the Shan army. His sacrifice motivates him and Uru to continue fighting as they murder their way through the battlefield. Qin Yun gets wounded in the shoulder, but is saved by Wei Yong and Uru, while the men surround them in a circle. The men embrace their fate and swear that they would fight and die together as they resume the onslaught. Far away, Commander Lu Dashan is shocked by the Shan army's efforts and orders the remaining 1,500 to attack and help them. Finally, they defeat the Shu army, with Wei Yong beheading the enemy commander. Returning to the palace to announce the news of the triumph, the lords are overjoyed, agreeing to provide 5 additional battalions and reconnecting Qin Yun with an old comrade, Hikui, the leader of the Qi army, as well as Suzhou. The Shan army is challenged to overthrow the opposing capital, Nanking. They are greeted warmly by their return to the village. However, one of the soldiers, Shi Jinbao, sadly returns the emblems of his fallen comrades to their family. Later, after tending to Uru, Lion Sheng rushes to the abandoned house where Qin Yun is seeking refuge. However, she is hesitant to step inside, suppressing her affection for him. Over the next few weeks, the Shan army wins a string of victories around the region, leaving the Qi army's warriors to steal the riches. During a raid, 2 young soldiers assaulted terrified young women in the city. Despite being free to do anything they want, they are detained by Qin Yun, who swears not to tolerate their behavior. Uru begs for mercy to spare them, but the strict general orders their public execution as an example. They were buried shortly after. Meanwhile, while playing a board game, the Qing lords perceive Qin Yun's ambition growing and are concerned that his influence would exceed their own. Deciding to deny support and supplies moving ahead, their campaign to liberate Suzhou lasts a full year, resulting in many casualties and both sides starving to death. Commander Dacian chastises Qin Yun for betting on the remaining men during their siege. One of the young soldiers, unable to move due to an injury, begs for help, but is denied. Feeling abandoned, Qin Yun and Wei Yong return to the Qing Empire and beg with the lords for help in Suzhou, only to be ignored. With no other options, the general decides to approach the Qi army and ask for their help. He proposes dividing Nanking's forces with equis after a successful takeover, to which the commander agrees. Meanwhile, Uru, who has been assigned to lead the wounded soldiers outside Suzhou, chooses to sneak into the city at night, leaving Lion Sheng to tell his brothers that he would die a hero. When Qin Yun arrives with the men's provisions, he upsets Wei Yong by telling him that he may have waited too long and must attack at daybreak. Shortly after, he spots Lion Sheng and pursues her through the underground trenches, ready to reveal that his love for her has increased. She initially denies, but gives in to make love under the moonlight, away from everyone. A day later, after searching the Suzhou alleys for refuge, a disguised Uru offers opium to Commander Wenjin, who recognizes him right away and reveals one of his former soldiers. She has defected and joined his faction. Later, at daybreak, Qin Yan orders the soldiers to prepare for combat, while instructing Lion Sheng to leave and return home. he agrees to marry her if he survives. Meanwhile, Wenjin agrees to surrender and allows Uru to kill him in a duel to the death. As he stabs the sword into his chest, the commander urges him to pledge to spare the lives of his 4,000 troops, including the civilians of Suzhou. Later, the Shan army becomes shocked to see the townspeople leave the city in droves and praises Uru for his bravery. Though Weiyang and Qingyang are overjoyed at his homecoming, Uru appears concerned about the deal he has just made, now that the people in the city will be their responsibility. As she and the townsfolk demand bread, Uru explains the situation to Qingyan, who instantly denies help. Having only gathered food for 10 days through their journey to Nanking, he becomes angered, knowing that the general made a deal with Equi despite the value of the Qi army toward the siege. Disagreements arise with the provision share, with Uru ordering the storehouse to open. Still, Qingyang warns that this will be the only share they will grant before ordering their execution. Angered, he tries to lash out, but Weiyang blocks his way, believing they are making the right choice. The soldiers then knock Uru out and haul him away for insubordination. She and his people link arms, realizing their fate as the archers prepare their bows and a shackled Uru, whose loud pleas can be heard from a distance. The massacre begins, despite Weiyang and the soldiers' obvious horror at what they are doing. By the end of it, Uru has been released and resolves never to speak to Weiyang again as a result of his actions. Uru becomes disillusioned as the gate opens, kneeling next to Shi and touching the small boy's cheek. Later, the corpses are then deposited in trenches and buried. Tired of the power struggle, he reveals his intention to return home and urges others to join him, much to Qi Yun's disappointment. As they prepare to take control of Nanking in a few days, he recalls a statement he made about everyone deserving to be free, including the underprivileged. He believes he is now a hypocrite because of the massacre. With him to be reasonable, explaining it was an essential advantage to get ahead of Hikui and liberate millions of civilians in Nanking. Weiyang also expresses concern, pleading with him to stay so that their promise is not broken, as the entire army kneels and asks for forgiveness. He reluctantly agrees to stay as long as he can kill Qingyan in case his plot fails. True to what was agreed upon, Nanking's takeover was successful, and the tales of the three brothers' valiant efforts were featured in the stage play. After a month, the city has been restored, and the brothers have taken up new roles in the Dowager Empress's government. Uru, for his part, strengthens the Shan regiment, but hands out the soldiers' bonuses without permission, much to Qingyun's displeasure, who is yet to be chosen as Nanking governor. Later, Hikui shares a letter with Lord Di regarding Qingyang's soon-to-come inauguration, which upsets both of them. They'll need Uru's help to bring him down. Uru and Lion Shang, meanwhile, attended the brilliant performance of the Three Brothers opera and sobbed over Weiyang and Qingyang's wartime memories. Later, in the tea house, Hikui seeks to persuade him to join forces in humiliating Qingyan while claiming Nanking for themselves. Surprisingly, he uses his pent-up wrath to assist the commander by beating him up, demonstrating that he still resents Qingyan. Shortly after, Lion Shang leaves and boards a boat, unaware that Weiyang is following her closely. To his surprise, he notices Qingyang with her, which strengthens his suspicions that they are having an affair. Later, at an imperial summoning, the Dowager Empress bestows him with golden robes, confirming his appointment as governor of Nanking and giving the people with 3 years of tax remission. Shortly after, the imperial lord advises Qingyang to cut all relations with Uru, claiming he must be killed due to his bad impact. He considers it as he walks away and looks over the ice horizon. Meanwhile, Uru informs an awakened Lion Shang that he is ready to return home after feeling undesired in Nanking, and invites her to join him. Suddenly, he learns about Qingyang's mysterious disappearance. However, he only hides in secret to plot his assassination of Uru, which Weiyang has somehow deduced. Later, Uru accepts the bait to check on Qingyan, assuming he is the one who will be assassinated. Weiyang warns the general about his plans. However, because he has made up his mind, he takes advantage of the opportunity to save Uru by visiting Lion Shang and killing her to keep the commitment. Meanwhile, on a rainy night, Uru is mortally shot with arrows, cursing the name of his killer and dying unaware that it was his brother Qingyang all along. The general tears as Weiyang frantically bangs on the door. However, he is too late to stop the assassination. When the inauguration arrives on a stormy afternoon at 11:45 a.m., Qingyang walks out the gates and into the court, only to be stabbed by William, leading the two brothers to fight. The fierce fight concludes with Weiyang's defeat. Though the general is displeased with his beating, he walks away, but the injured Weiyang rises and stabs him. To Qingyang's amazement, a paid assassin shoots him from above. He then announces himself his brother's killer, unaware that the authorities had planned the general's assassination weeks before the inauguration. He then frames Weiyang to hide their mess. The movie ends with Governor Peng Qingyang, who is claimed to have died on July 26, 1970, followed by Zhang Weng's execution in September of that year. With that being said, this is it for today's video. Thanks for watching. Let us know what you think of the movie in the comments section.